Great job. Keep it up. Proud of you.
Rock and roll. Hey, welcome to the show. This
Hey.
is the PodAntics episode, whatever.
I think it's
And,
PodAntics.
PodAntics.
Okay, yeah, let's be pedantic about how to pronounce it.
You gotta be pedantic about PodAntics.
I was actually wondering that, yeah. So we're gonna say PodAntics.
I like
It's the
PodAntics.
PodAntics.
Yeah.
PodAntics. I'm into it. I like it. Cool. So hey, what's up, guys? What have you been up to?
Not much. I actually got to do a podcast yesterday with a pretty
Good old
well-known
James.
comedian that I actually know and respect, so that was cool.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, it's cool. Jimmy Dore's the guy's name. I've known his work forever. I saw like a Comedy Central presents of him in, I don't know, the mid 2000s, like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then he was a kind of semi-regular guest on the first podcast I ever listened to, which was Never Not Funny. Jimmy Pardo, another comedian, his podcast, and he's like a podcast pioneer. He's pre Mark Maron, pre almost anyone you
Okay.
can think of. I think he started in
Yeah.
06, which is pretty fucking early for a podcast.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed Jimmy Dore as a guest, and I haven't like followed him super close or anything, but
Is that Adam yelling?
I hope so.
His voice sticks out.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen bits and pieces here and there, and he's gotten, sort of political in the last, I don't know, 5-10. Yeah, sort of really political in the last 5-10
yeah.
years. So it was cool hearing him yell about politics yesterday, and it was fun. It was fun making an actual good professional comedian laugh. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
No, he's a cool dude. Yeah, well, he seems to have gotten a lot of the initial political plug when he started working with TYT.
Yeah, I was with them for a while.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
it's
first
such a
time
good
I
one.
heard of him, and I think a lot of people in my circle. Like
Yeah,
Adam,
that's fair.
Adam heard of him from TYT, I think.
Yeah,
So
I
he
heard
was
of
a
him
regular
actually.
guest there.
He randomly one day just went on.
Yeah, you guys do politics. I do comedy.
Yeah. And I just stopped
Well,
watching
but-
TYT, and I was like, fuck that.
If you pay attention though, it's like ever since Trump, especially, it's like comedy and politics are very close twins these days.
Yeah, and so many people wrongfully thought that, oh man, if Trump gets elected, it's going to be so good for comedy. No, it ruined
No, it's
comedy.
terrible. Yeah.
Bush
It made
in the
everyone
White
lazy.
House was good for comedy. Trump was not. That's the
I don't know.
difference.
I can't speak to how good Bush was, but it's just that he died. One of the major issues we had, especially immediately, was so many comedians made their work get reduced down to step on stage and hey, that Trump guy, right?
Exactly.
And so it's oh man, it's just.
But and
it's
the
a
problem, the
graveyard.
biggest problem is Donald Trump is funnier,
yeah.
than every comedian.
That's hard.
So
That's a hard
don't
one.
bother. He's killing it.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. Yeah, the debates, if anything, are going to be very entertaining.
Oh my god.
Very entertaining.
Which kind of sucks, if you think about it.
Well,
if you think
no,
about
I mean,
what a
the
debate ought to be.
Oh no,
If we
it
can
really
talk about-
sucks.
But
I am
it
in.
is
The
what it
problem is that I'm in gallows humor mode now, though, because it's like the things are so messed up starting way before Trump that it's very difficult to. At this point, like, yeah, you're at where it feels like all I can do is just laugh at whatever's funny. Because if I was gonna be stressed out on how things should be, that starts, before I'm born. And so things have been so messed up, and I don't think I've ever seen a president who I was like, bang up job. I'm 31 years old, and so it basically starts at the tail end of Bush 1.
Yep.
And from then on, I haven't been impressed, and so it's just, I don't know, man, things are so, I keep watching shows that are not good for me. I keep watching like House of Cards. I just finished Succession, and those shows are all just going to make you be like, yeah, that's probably right. That's probably what it is. It's
I'm a
just
little
bunch of-
older, so I've had some presidents I liked. I was a big Woodrow Wilson guy.
I was gonna say, did you like
Yeah.
JFK?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm older
JFK,
than both you guys.
JFK, a little too young, a little too Catholic for me, but
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Heard
Yeah.
that.
but he had his merits. He promised
over
to get us to the moon, not in the next decade, but in this one. The weirdest
point.
pronunciation of decade in the history of speeches.
Dude, you guys seen The Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great
When I was
film.
listening to what's his face, Robert Pattinson, I was like, "Where have I heard that accent before?" I was like, "Oh, he sounds just like JFK."
He's
feel like
very Boston.
He was really in and out. I feel like it was just getting a lot from Defoe, like in all the scenes. So like he's trying to do some sort of New York, but it comes off kind of maritime Irish.
I thought he was doing more Boston than New York.
I guess
I thought it was
Boston,
really
that's what I
Boston,
meant.
very
That's what I
very
meant.
Boston.
Yeah.
You know,
and
it
to
was
my ear,
consistent.
they're the same.
I get that. Well, it was
Racist.
fair enough.
And I am very
A
racist.
Northeast U.S. racist.
I'm pretty racist myself. Not ever living in those areas. It's basically just as good as you. Like, we've all only ever heard it through like media.
As as a funny accent connoisseur, I can differentiate pretty well.
I can differentiate between like Scousers and Brummies and like Geordies
There you go. That's pretty
and
good.
like Cockneys.
And
Yeah, but you could
all
probably-
the trash British accents.
Yeah.
Right, but you could probably differentiate between like LA and
Welsh.
Sacramento.
No.
So,
What?
oh no, because LA has got the valley thing, and
Like,
then
oh my
Sacramento is like the
God.
upspeak thing. So like San Francisco
No,
is going to be
there's-
like, so I went to the store today and I bought an apple, and then if you go down to like the valley thing, it's more of the clueless kind of a accent. And
Yeah, no, I have
Which-
no idea. Like I don't know if I've ever met anyone from Sacramento, but maybe if I did, I would.
San
I would-
Francisco though, much bigger.
I've been to San
city.
Fran. I've talked
Yeah.
to those people,
There's,
but
like-
everyone I've talked to there is a relative, so they all had like thick Armenian accents and shit.
That's what's up. Oh, so is that what your background is?
I'm half Armenian and like
Half Armenian.
and like a quarter Lebanese and a quarter Syrian,
Okay.
so
I
half
think I-
Arab.
Interesting. So System of a Down's on deck.
half Arab,
Sorry,
half
what was
also
that?
sort of Arab.
I said so. System of a Down is on deck.
Yeah, it says it's a good old Surge.
Yeah. dude.
Serge.
All right. How do you pronounce the last name?
Tankian?
Tankian.
Is Tankian?
Well,
Tankian.
I think Tankian is how anyone would pronounce it in North America, but
How do you?
in
pronounce it?
in like Armenian last names are like Ian, like that's how they end if you're saying in Armenian, just in general. So like Anna Kasparian would be Anna Kasparian.
Okay.
As an example, well, actually, I shouldn't say what my mother's maiden name is because it's a security question.
Could
So obviously, I
we
have an Armenian. I have an
also get
Armenian.
her
what was your-
address and social insurance
Yeah.
number?
What was your favorite pet? What was your first pet?
It is so fun fishing for people's password
security questions.
like
You
in
know, I haven't
person.
done it, so
It's so great.
Well,
I've done
have you
that.
guys seen-
I've hacked into a person's
Right.
account before using their security
Yeah,
questions.
and that's what hacking is, right?
yeah, that's what hacking is really.
Or it's two people typing on one keyboard.
Or it's
Obviously.
if you
yeah.
look if you go to Google Images and type in hacker, you're just gonna get a guy in a hoodie against like a matrix background. It's a dark hoodie. It's all and like a computer screen. Like just do that. If you're listening to
50%
podcast,
chance.
open Google Images, just type hacker. It's just like people in dark people, hooded figures in front of
Dark
screens
people.
with like
certainly dark people.
with digital shit going on in the background. Very scary.
50% chance that he has a Guy Fawkes mask on.
Oh yeah, half the images will have like Guy Fawkes going on there.
Which
Yeah,
makes
that,
no sense because what, like 87% of hackers are Russian, so that doesn't work at all.
If you ask CNN, yes. Well, I have seen something. I've seen a couple of things. I just watched The Boys season 1, and
How was
yeah,
that?
I loved it. How did you guys see that?
Adam watched some of The Boys.
He did.
Wait, he made a review having only seen some of it.
I actually think he must have seen the.
He
full
must
first
have gone
season.
back and watched
Yeah,
it, but it
son
would
of
be
a-
really funny if he didn't. I don't
I
want to
think
blow
he
up.
and Sikab. I think he and Sikab watched the whole thing or watched
Okay,
the first
yeah.
season or something.
I don't want to
Something
blow
that's-
up his spot or anything, but yeah,
Right.
because I was there months ago, like pre-COVID, and had
Yeah.
watched probably the first 5 episodes on
almost done.
on his Amazon Prime, and then
Oh
like-
yeah.
and then
It's like
he
less
went
than
to
10
watch
episodes.
it. He went to watch it, watched episode 1, because he clicked on episode 1, obviously. But then from episode 1, it took him to episode 6 because that
Yeah.
was the next
Yes.
unwatched episode.
He
and
complained
then
about
he
that in his,
watched
review.
6 through 10, not knowing that he missed 2 through 5.
That's pretty.
kind of
That's actually
impressive.
sounds like Adam. That's
No,
that's
no, Gael, come on. That doesn't sound absolutely spot on like Adam at all.
If
It's funny
anyone
because
has-
Adam's like a very like you could put anything on the screen, and it's I think really difficult to get to like throw him off. You know what I'm saying? Like he's always like he is the most cynical person I know, but he consumes media in the most sincere way, and that
Yes,
he
yes.
just allows it to wash over him and just takes notes whenever he can.
well,
and then
he
That
said
is
he
a good
never
way to put
walked
it.
out of anything, and I was actually
no, he's never walked out of
impressed.
anything.
No.
That shocks me because it's rare to meet someone who's as opinionated as he is, and this is coming from someone who I think I'm more opinionated than even he is.
Probably.
And I have absolutely walked out of stuff, so it's like
I've
there's
never
a
walked
point
out
when
of a
you're like-
theater. I've never walked out.
I've walked out of a theater.
But I've walked out of like, you know,
I've
like I don't want to watch
been-
this movie anymore.
The Purge. I walked out of The
I've been
Purge.
escorted out of a theater. I've never chosen to walk out of a theater.
Okay,
Yeah.
details. I'm gonna yes and you on this one. Come on, fast on your feet, man.
funny answer. I was fucking during Schindler's List. Real answer.
When you were 4 years old.
I wish.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, fair enough.
Real answer. I snuck into Freddy Got Fingered underage and
Hell yeah.
was asked to leave.
By who?
The usher.
He, like,
Actually,
was-
it might have been Usher. I think he was singing My Way at
That'd
the
be
time.
so great. That'd be
Yeah.
so great. The usher was like, "Hey, what's that little kid doing in here?"
I mean, I
So-
feel like I was like a year underage. It was fucking bullshit.
Well, I'm just surprised they were paying. Like, in my experience, ushers don't care about anything like other than just like getting through their shift without any annoyances.
Yeah, I don't know. This guy had a hard on for
Yeah, that guy
power,
was
I guess.
you know Captain Gunner. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But no, seriously. So what happened is I didn't watch it out of sheer. Have you ever seen a trailer for something that made you go like, I probably would kind of like that, and so it's like that's not enough to get me to actually go and like download, get some subscription service I don't have. And I was under the opinion I thought it was a HBO show, so I just was like, nah, I don't want to get around to it. And literally, just one of my friends, I had just finished Twin Peaks, and one of my friends was like, hey, yeah, it's an Amazon
old
show.
or new or both.
Old, and I just started new.
Okay.
It's let's talk about Twin Peaks a little bit, man. That's a weird one. You guys watch Twin Peaks?
I've never seen Twin Peaks.
Twin Peaks
it's worth checking out.
tough. Twin Peaks is interesting. I think that season 1 was kind of a parody of soap operas, and if you think about the time
Kinda.
period when it got released, it would have been a lot of soap operas around it.
1990-ish.
Basically, yeah, I think it's like 91, 92 or something like that.
Yeah.
So what happens is it works as long as they're making fun of soap operas. What's difficult is they start to transition into a soap opera in season 2. I also don't
Kinda.
think that season 2 is only one. I think season 2 is basically season 1 or 2 and 3, and the new one's like 4. What happened is season 1 is 8 episodes, if I recall. Season 2 is like 22 episodes.
Yeah, it sounds right.
And after about 10 episodes, we finish up basically the arc that was started in season 1.
Yeah.
And then you basically, episode 10, have to kickstart a new season worth of like conflicts. What's that? Oh, dope.
God.
Dope. Where'd you get that?
The internet.
Fair enough. I was hoping you won it at a raffle.
It concerns
or
me
Nah.
that it's within arm's reach of you.
Yeah, exactly. Right,
My
right,
keys?
Oh, it's just
It's a
your
keychain. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought it was like
hoping it was like a
random
plaque.
paraphernalia.
You
paraphernalia.
would imagine, you couldn't imagine the things that are within arm's reach if you're like all kinds of weird shit.
I imagine you're like fucking like Oracle from like the X-Men or something.
Very
where
much
you just
so,
have
yeah.
like
Just kind of grab
Yeah.
off screen is whatever.
Yeah.
everything
prompt
just
he
around
needs.
you because you're disabled.
Yeah, I'll just,
I am extremely disabled.
I'll start. Yeah, preach. So yeah, that's so that's an interesting one. Like I said, I went and I don't know. Other than spoilers, really, it's just that I think that there's a big quality drop off after about episode 10. It feels like they've gotten into new conflicts. If I recall, David Lynch had kind of left mostly the series at that point, and shows up more in the show as an actor in the show than he does actually like running the thing. And then the very last
Yeah.
episode, he comes back in and he kind of retcons a bunch of stuff that sucked about that season.
Yeah.
For instance,
and then just goes crazy because the last
He does.
episode is nuts.
and it's the best one. It's like it's a half an hour in the red room, and it's amazing, like visual, interesting stuff. So what's hard?
It's
about
visual
David Lynch-
interesting, but it's just so much walking from room to room. It's I mean it's
It
not
is, but I wasn't bored,
off
but I
brand
was-
for it's not boring. No, it's not.
I was
And it's
also-
not off brand for Lynch either. So
and I was super high, so that might have helped. It's
Okay.
like when you're watching, I could imagine like having a different kind of enjoyment watching a movie like Climax or Into the Void when you're really high versus when you're not. So that may have been kind of that scenario there. But seriously, it's just the other thing is that you trust him, that even if some of the stuff is kind of goofy and doesn't land, that it's going somewhere. What really kills is when you watch a show like Game of Thrones or Lost, and you assume that the writers know what they're doing and that this is all going somewhere. And then when you start to see behind the curtain and realize, oh, they're just making stuff up and hoping that they'll come up with something at the end to tie it together, it really ruins the
and
value
Lost
of
hurts the
initial
most
stuff.
because they said they had the whole plan. They're like,
Uh-huh.
we have the next 3 seasons mapped out.
They lied.
Great. And they just lied.
They just straight up lied. Yeah. And then
JK,
there's-
we're writing every episode a week before it airs.
If anything, J.J. Abrams is a great example of how you can really fool people into thinking that you're writing unbelievably clever stuff. You know, like more research should be done on. Like I might even just try to make a video on that, where it's like, as long as I think this is going somewhere, if it doesn't make sense, it's okay, because I'll just be like, oh my god, he's
because
such a genius.
it will pay off for me if I stay with it, no matter how weird it gets. Maybe it'll be explained at the end, and it'll be really satisfying.
Well, and also the thing too that can save 99% of Deus Ex Machinas is just foreshadowing. Like literally just a little foreshadowing immediately makes almost any Deus Ex Machina work. And so it's difficult with those because it's almost all foreshadowing for things that just haven't been figured out later. Yeah. And so you have like a smoke monster in season 1, and then by the time they get to the end, they forgot to even finish that off. So they're like, oh shit, there was just a smoke monster. What was it? Yeah, who knows?
What are you gonna do?
But it's his stupid fucking philosophy that the mystery itself is the value. The story comes second. Everything is to make the mystery box work. And so as soon as you open the mystery box, you've lost all the value. And I completely disagree. And I think that's what happened in Game of Thrones. I think that they were so afraid of being predictable that they, in lieu of all of the foreshadowing they had made, they decided to just subvert your expectations for the sake of it. You know, they Ryan Johnson's us on, episode 8.
Yeah, and that happens a ton in pro wrestling, at least WWE too. Like they'll lay out a storyline, that is obvious where it's going, or it should be obvious where it's going. But then Vince McMahon, who runs the whole thing and is a crazy person, thinks it's too obvious, even though there's nowhere else it can logically go, and then just like switches the whole thing and fucks it up like repeatedly. Yeah, and
it does.
It's a really common problem.
It's a huge kick in the butt.
It works really well for Dungeons and Dragons, I have to say. As a no, I'm not even kidding. Like as a dungeon master who has now run, I don't even know, like quite a handful of campaigns. It is basically the philosophy that I use to tell a story, because for people for a couple of reasons. First of all, and this is kind of slightly off topic, but I think it's interesting. You actually can't control where the story is going as a dungeon master because so much actually falls on the players' decisions. So you could set something up.
Right, there's too many variables that they can bring up.
That they can control, and then you have and actually you really have no idea where they're going to take the story. So your only strategy is to come up with like an overarching kind of grand plan or a grand scheme. You have some ballpark of where it's going to land. Points. It's going to land somewhere like there. But like you don't really have anything more concrete than that. And you can work with anything that's given to you. And then you can still navigate the players through this kind of labyrinth of intrigue that that captivates them. And then in that sense, the mystery is all that matters, because none of the players are because D&D is such a long form thing that none of the players are actually expecting to get to the conclusion within that session. In fact, they're expecting it maybe like a few weeks or a few months later. Maybe they'll get some payback. And if you're a good DM, then all you're doing is taking notes of all the things that have happened and trying to reincorporate as much of it as possible into future events. And I don't know, it's interesting. It works really well for D&D. I've had a lot of success telling stories that way.
With what you just said, though, you're saying like, for the session. And I think if you think of it, those sessions are like an episode. So I think that if ultimately if your mission was to go save the princess from the dragon, if it doesn't end with you saving the princess from the dragon, then that can be kind of frustrating, even if you have had like a months-long campaign.
Well, it depends, right? Because the princess from the dragon thing to me, that's just the MacGuffin. That's just the thing that drives the plot forward. The real story is going to be something else, right?
It could be.
And it's that's like if I've never done a Princess Dragon scenario.
Well, of course, I'm trying to use the most generic idea.
But if I were to do that, like I would set up. I've done something where it's like I've set something up like that, where it's like we have to do this X. You have to go to X to save this, and then they go to it, and then something's happened, and things have changed, and they have to now adapt to this new circumstances. It makes things really interesting.
Well, you can also soft pilot basically during your campaign and tease out like maybe you come up with another idea or something, and you can kind of maybe see like, oh, maybe they bite and want to work into this other kind of campaign.
Yeah, and you have to kind of work the players as well, because they also have their own ways of enjoying the game. Every player is kind of different. It's really cool to have that kind of interactive storytelling medium.
People think
I think you could write stories that way. By the way, I think if you were clever as a filmmaker or a wrestling narrative writer, that you could actually have that, but you'd need to be interacting with other writers.
Yeah, there's certainly ways to do it, but like in the wrestling example, like they'll do a thing where the bad guy, the heel, like keeps getting one over on the good guy, the face. Like the heel keeps getting the best of the face, and they're leading to a big climactic match, and it's so obvious that the face needs to win.
Yeah.
And then, but because Vince thinks, oh, all the fans think the face is going to win, of course they do, because that's the story. Then he just has the heel win again, and the face looks like an asshole. So.
Well, it seems like, for instance, like during the 90s, like, what's weird is they've had decisions that were almost the opposite. There was two main points I can think of where it was for a long time, it felt like John Cena could never lose. And then same thing with Undertaker, like never lost Hell in a Cell or whatever that was called.
He never lost at WrestleMania, which was the big show of the year. He had a 21 or 2 year streak going.
Like, how is that not the most boring thing in the world?
That's insane.
Like, hey, honey, we're gonna go watch the Undertaker win again.
The streak was actually great because the streak was quite compelling because it happened by accident. It so happened that he ended up being booked to win the first, kind of 8 or 9 WrestleManias he was on. Then they, some clever record keeper went back and looked, and they're like, holy shit, Undertaker has never lost at WrestleMania. Then they made a thing of it, and every year was someone trying to break the streak. Yeah. And it just never happened, and then finally did in 2014, I think. But yeah, he went from 1990 I guess 1991 until losing it 2014.
That sounds filthy boring.
No, trying to break the streak was compelling for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it would have been.
So. I just feel like after the 14th one,
the John Cena thing, who just never lost any time, was not general. Compelling. Yeah.
They'll just be like, hey, look, we're gonna watch so and so lose to John Cena.
Exactly.
Like, exciting. I don't know. It's a weird one, but back to just thoughts of the boys. It's funny that Adam happened to have just watched it because that means both of us watched it really late. And that was the next video I was gonna make, and he just put his video out and said everything I was gonna say. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll wait till season 2.
Post Adam's video and see if he notices.
I should. You know what I'll do? I'll just do a reaction to his video. I'll do just a full react video.
I miss those. I miss the RE. You remember when people used to put RE and then
reply videos.
Just reply videos.
I'm not lying. I actually do miss those. Those actually were interesting.
I love
Phil
those.
DeFranco swore by those as basically half of how he got famous. He said that he was making quality reply videos to bigger YouTubers. And back then, Dax Flame was a huge YouTuber with 2 million subs or something like that. It was... back then it wasn't even like that. It would be hundreds of thousands would be a huge YouTuber.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now we live in a world where the number one guy has 106 million.
Yeah.
He's not a good example though. He's such an anomaly. You really need to count the number 2 and 3 guy or whatever, but still really big YouTubers are in the 20s of millions.
But I think what we got to do with the modern times is we got to do a kids react to Adam's video of the boys.
I want to get people from the React channel react to Adam shitting on people from the React channel. I don't know if you guys watch his highlight reel from his streams or anything like that, but that's there's a fair amount of React content that has to do with the Lion King stuff because it's just well, I don't know, man. I was talking Elon Musk. I really liked how he put it. He was saying that the companies that turn into these giant billion-dollar franchises are not franchises, but just these whales are the ones that have the highest limbic response. And so it's Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so I was telling my sister, I was trying to explain because I was working her through my whole process with YouTube and what I'm trying to do. Game of Thrones video I just put out a couple days ago made $25. Woo woo.
You made it.
So I know, made it, man. So I'm so I was telling her about why that is and what I'm doing and how I'm trying to work things to get them to work. And I was saying how part of what's difficult is I'm trying to make content that is kind of for adults. 8-year-olds would probably think I'm fucking boring. So it's hard in a world where there's Mr. Beast who's I bought 100 million Orbeez and put them in my friend's, pool. And it's so cheap.
That's good. I definitely know who Mr. Beast and what Orbeez are. I definitely understood that whole sentence.
But just think about any kind of, okay, here's one that almost bothers me more is all these science channels that are basically I have access to liquid nitrogen. So what does a banana look like when you freeze it? What does an iPhone look like when you freeze it? What does whatever? And so they're not very interesting, but they're just interesting enough to get a person to go.
And they're not real sciencey. They
That-
involve
right.
chemicals. That's about the end of
Yes,
it.
no, I know. I've never been a fan of them all being like, we're science channels, we're gonna blow things up. You know, it's like, it's neat. It'd be like slow-mo guys acting like they're, you know, a science channel or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, there are always those things, right? Like even slow-mo guys, another good example. I'm not mad at any of these people for producing their stuff, but it's definitely difficult in a world where people who have the highest limbic response get fed. If you're purposely not making just like, hey, I pranked my girlfriend until she cried and we broke up, then it's difficult to compete in that, you know, realm. It's like being in
I
a
pranked my girlfriend until it killed her. Now that's a video.
Exactly. Now here's my prison react channel. So yeah, so it's interesting trying to figure out how to modify my content to make it more watchable to people who aren't autistic about movies like I am, but also not selling my soul, you know, to making content that I don't like, you know, I don't find value in and think is lame. Because
Right.
I mean, yeah, I could have tried to do that. I could have just been like, hey, I'm, you know, I don't just, and yeah, I could have basically made Jackass the YouTube channel. And maybe it would be more successful now, but since there's no guarantees, I would rather just make stuff I'm proud of.
Yeah, you might as well make something you like and
Yeah.
hope it works than make something you don't like and also hope it works, but maybe has a slightly better chance of success. It's not really
Yeah.
worth it.
Totally right. And there's so much saturation in that market anyway. The
Yeah.
stuff I am doing is stuff that not just everybody can do. So that helps a little bit as well. You know,
Yeah.
I think that movies are broad enough that people are into them, but like even average people are into them. It's not something like I'm into Warhammer, you know, or I play D&D.
I thought you said even Irish people are into them. I'm like,
even
man,
those fucking potato eaters.
harsh critique of the Irish.
That's like one of the few places I
You
would really
listen
like to
here,
visit.
Mr. Gloria.
I sure hope so. So yeah, someday I would like to go. That would be cool. I'm actually super into Ireland.
We have movies too.
Yeah, that's what I hear. You know what? They're going to. This is maybe the first time in my entire life I'm going to get to feel what most foreigners feel when stuff releases in America first and they have to wait a week or two before it comes out in theirs. I don't get to see Tenet before you guys. And well, maybe I don't know about Canada, but for a lot of people, they're going to get to see Tenet before me. And that
Oh, really?
something else.
What, is it actually coming out? I just assumed it was just sort of a long-term prank by Christopher Nolan, and it's not actually a movie and is never coming out.
Yeah, I would hope so. Well, you know what was weird is like we had so few trailers, and so I kept seeing just the same couple of clips. That yeah, it was kind of like this is weird how little of this movie I'm seeing.
I don't
But
think
just
it's a movie.
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's my
Yeah.
hot take. I don't think it's a movie.
Had it not already started getting reviews, I might believe you. Unless those are all.
Now
paid
they're in
reviews.
on it. It's
Fake
like the
reviews,
COVID
yeah.
thing. Have you heard about this virus that everyone's saying?
Never heard. I don't know one person who has it, so it must not be real.
Exactly. Of my sample size of 3, no one has it.
YouTube, don't flag me, please. But yeah, you know, so that's going on. But no, but The Boys, I'm telling you, man, I'm really. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
It's hella fun.
It's fun, but I was so surprised at how interesting and relatively unique the characters were. I thought every character was going to be something I had seen 100 times before, and they were written where they behaved in ways that were surprising as much as a person that is in real life could be surprising because they just have their own thoughts and you can't just guess everything they're going to do. But they also weren't, you know, I don't know. It's just it made them feel more real because they acted in ways that you're like, okay, well that actually makes sense. Like things have led you into a point to do this. People didn't have to pick up the idiot ball artificially just to cause drama. There's some interpersonal drama.
Everything was
between,
like it worked with its own internal logic and everything was pretty
that's the way to put
consistent.
it.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised by that. And again, like the villains, like, you know, they're not hyper mustache twirly, but you still don't like them, which helps.
Yeah.
You know, I'm never a big fan of the evil just to be evil kind of guy.
Yeah.
And these guys are evil and not in ways that are like they're not, you know, they're not Deadpool. You're not like, oh, well, I actually kind of like them, even though they're kind of bad guys. It's like, no, they're legitimately bad guys. But
Yeah.
a lot of the conflict
But
is born out of how insecure
you get
they
the
are.
motivation and
You do. Well,
Yeah.
all of them seemed hyper insecure is a lot of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so when we take those tender moments with them individually and you kind of see what they're struggling with internally, it doesn't ever excuse any of their behavior, which is good. But it also,
Yeah.
you know what's funny is I was telling someone, it reminds me a lot, like A-Train reminds me a lot, The Deep is a better example. The Deep reminds me a lot of what we've complained about with Bryce from 13 Reasons Why.
Bryce
It's like-
also fucked a dolphin.
Exactly right. So when you have the guy fuck a dolphin episode 1 and you hate him, but then immediately they start working on all of the like, hey, look how insecure he is. Look how everyone treats him like shit all the time. Now
Yeah.
he's getting sent off to this place, and then he's at his lowest point, and then he actually has to do some real soul searching and try to like figure out who he is and stuff. It's like, okay, this is how you start working that. You don't ever get to the point where you're like, oh, I feel really bad for this guy, but you're like, okay, there's something to this guy. He's not Bryce, where he's just like, yeah, I raped you. I don't care. I'll do it again. You know, like, how dare you say something?
Yeah, but you see why he has problems, and it kind of makes sense.
He's deeply flawed, and it gives you the idea that, like, if they had done, he is a guy, him or A-Train, based on how they end with A-Train, I think both of those guys are positioned where if they wanted to, they could do a face turn for both of those characters, and it could make sense. And you wouldn't be like, oh, come on!
Yeah.
So, I mean, I appreciate that. You know, they don't have to do that kind of stuff. This show, it absolutely could have been just guns and blood and violence and swear words, which it is all of those things, but they actually took a little bit extra effort and they wrote like a story.
And actually, because it has the veneer of just like R-rated superhero thing where, hey, the superheroes are jerks, and it could have just been that. But they actually, it's nice that they went a little deeper with it. Same
thing with the boys. I love the dynamic of the boys. I think Frenchie is like one of my favorite characters right now. Like, he's just a really coolly written character. I haven't seen a character like him in a lot of stuff. I was just saying that about someone else too. I was saying how it was Twin Peaks. I was talking about Cooper, McLaughlin, Kyle McLaughlin. Yeah, Cooper is one of the most unique characters I think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen.
He's a great character, right? Yeah, Dale Cooper's awesome.
Dale Cooper is a fantastic character. It is really surprising how good he is. And he elevates a lot of the show when the show starts having trouble. Like, he kicks it up, and he's almost the only one who doesn't feel like he's in a soap opera. Like, that helps a lot. So many characters talk and behave how you would in a soap opera. That being said,
don't get your hopes up too much for the new Twin Peaks. If you love Dale Cooper. Now, I'm not saying something happens to him. I'm saying you don't get a lot of him, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough. Well, and something has happened to him.
Something has happened to him, but...
Right. I'm 2 episodes in, and it wasn't as good. I don't see it good and bad. I don't necessarily... It's a tough one when we're talking about Twin Peaks.
The one thing I was shocked about is that it's so much weirder than the original. Because the original's pretty weird.
Well, and what was funny
is this is considerably weirder.
That's what sold me on it.
Yeah.
Someone, finally convinced me to get into it, and I was like, okay, we can watch it together. And it started with, I want to see season 3, so I'm going to go back and watch season 1 and 2. So the whole time I had this, like, I can't wait to get to season 3. And some things are different in ways that I prefer, and some things are different in maybe ways I'm not super duper in love with. So it's I don't know. Well, so that's what I was going to say earlier, is I'll get lynched for this, but I think David Lynch is slightly overrated.
You won't by me. I don't know if you will by Gael or not.
I don't care about Lynch's filmography enough.
Yeah, I think he's I think what he's gotten away with is I think that he has done well. So it's kind of like someone described Chris Nolan. They said that he's kind of like a guy who makes art. Oh fuck, it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt said this. He said Chris Nolan to him makes art movies, but at a massive budget. And so he makes, like, if you're going to make a big Hollywood blockbuster movie and try to make it like something that could have been in Cannes, like, that's kind of what he's like this bridge between. I feel like that with David Lynch with like really, really experimental, crazy, visual movies that normally would only make $10. And he has written them to be palatable enough to get more of the mainstream audience to catch them. But I think because he's pulled that off, people give him a little bit more grace when things are a little tough.
He absolutely gets too much grace when a lot of the stuff he's doing is just weird for the sake of weird. There's no deeper meaning to it. He just wanted to put a weird thing on camera. That was the long and short of it. Yes.
That whole big thing with rabbits, like, I was listening through all that and trying to piece it together. And that's what I'm saying, right? You'll give them so much credit because you're like, oh, this means something. Like, the rabbits are talking out of order.
But it doesn't necessarily. It was just a decision he made.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting to him.
I don't think most, to their credit, I don't think most Lynch, although maybe they do, I don't think most Lynch fans necessarily interpret everything that he says as though he had a intent behind it. I know a lot of them do, but I'm pretty sure most of them don't appreciate it in that way. I think the phenomenon is actually more closer to what happens when you get like somebody who does something first, like YouTubers who do this thing before anyone else does.
Yeah,
and then they get really big and they snowball, and then because they have the recognition, they get to keep doing it and keep kind of making money off of it. I mean, the stuff that Lynch does isn't unique these days. It's just a lot of people still do that. It's every film festival you'll get something Lynchian. Sure. But he did it early enough at a high enough profile that it got recognized, and then he became kind of the face of it, and then he just kept doing it, and because he was kind of the only real face of it, he just kept amassing, I think, views, for lack of a better term. I think that's basically. I think he was just first, basically. I think there's a lot of things that
and
he just
he got a lot of goodwill for that, basically.
and
that's
not
the
to say
point.
that he's not talented. I think some of his stuff is good, genuinely.
Yeah, well, I couldn't just go make Twin Peaks tomorrow either, so yeah, it's
So
I just think the hard part is that
to give credit where credit is due, right? But
I just think that
I don't
people
think
don't.
it's,
I wish he got a little bit more criticism for. I don't think that he necessarily is a master of fundamentals, and so whenever like Twin Peaks, for instance, season 1 and 2, whenever it's not being weird, it's actually kind of dry, and it's like soap opera-y, and you're like, I don't care about these people and who's
there
sleeping with
definitely some
who,
parts that are
and-
pretty basic.
Yeah, where the whole, that one chick is, the girl with the one eye, and she, like, goes into, coma and shit. Well, all right, that's unfair because, as far as I know, Lynch wasn't really involved in that part of the storyline by then. But even season 1, there's just a lot of soap opera crap where you're like, okay, this is, like, interpersonal conflicts of people who, it's, like, kind of high school drama stuff. It's, like, well, Days of Our Lives kind of drama stuff, right? It's like, I'm pregnant with your baby, but I'm in love with this guy, and, so-and-so, my husband's getting out of jail, and what am I going to do with my diner? And it's, like, a lot of that stuff I just wasn't very interested. I just didn't think if the show was great without the weird stuff, and then there was weird stuff, it'd be, like, the best show ever.
Agree. Yeah.
So I think that the fundamentals, I would like to see him nail that more, and get like just a good watchable show, and then add all the Red Room shit.
I think it's a bit late in the game for David Lynch to be he should get his fundament. There's also this kind of thing where at some point, if you've succeeded doing what you're doing, there's no reason for you to change.
Why would you deviate? Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
And it goes the other way. You can argue that like in the other direction too, which is to say, if you can succeed without the fundamentals, how important are the fundamentals really? Right? You can approach it from the other direction, and this is kind of true of I think a lot of disciplines, not just filmmaking. So I don't know. I think it's a weird situation to be in because we all think of the road. We all think of the path. This is the path we have to take to become successful. This is the path to getting more views or whatever. We have to adhere to the limbic response or whatever Musk did. But it's like, but then you've got all these examples of people who didn't do that and still made it, right? And it's like, well, what is that? What does that say? Does that say that people are just getting lucky, or that there's more than one path, and maybe all we're talking about is a path that's been clearly outlined, delineated, and I think it's weirder than that. I think we get a little narrow-minded when it comes to how the way that we think of that things ought to be done. When in reality, I think there's a lot of ways to get to a certain place. As I've said before as well, I don't even think the mentality of wanting to get to a certain place is the right mentality to even have.
Right. Well, that's actually what I was going to get at. Goals.
But
when you said why,
because I don't think Lynch was setting out to become like a superstar. I think he just wanted to make a statement. Like he was kind of like Picasso, right? We were talking about last time. Like he just wanted to say something and to be artistic, and then it just happened that he captured the zeitgeist or whatever it was, and then he made.
Well, and he would have made different stuff too. If he was just trying to be a commercial success, he would have made Michael. Stuff,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think you were saying,
and now it's very
though,
much part of his brand too. Is that he doesn't make that?
Is.
He's like, oh, I don't like any of that stuff. Like now it's kind of he's adopted that as kind of his image too. So I don't know. It's weird. It's really weird. It's definitely a strange thing to think.
So
about.
you're saying that why would you? And I guess why you would be that if you are this person and success isn't the end goal, especially once you've already made the success, you kind of have to make a new goal. That then the goal could be just trying to master your craft better and better and better every time. And for a guy like me, it's like, I watched Twin Peaks and I liked it, but maybe I give it a 6 or a 7. Maybe I could have, liked it at an 8 or a 9 or something. But like you said, if the goal, it's just hard because
he could also just have a different definition of what mastering his craft is. Maybe his craft isn't necessarily like the fundamentals of film, but making statements or getting reactions, right?
Yeah, which he's doing.
I think people focus on different things a lot of the time. I don't know. It's weird. I just think it's really weird. The whole, because like we're trying to sit here and say something meaningful about film or about art in general, but I think that's a really difficult thing to do because there's not a lot of concrete metrics you can use to measure the quality of something.
But I think that's also why it's a fun topic of debate, because if it was there'd be no reason for us to talk about it. It'd be solved. It'd be like, you just do this. If you want to build a house, there are options, but there's a lot of like, you build the foundation a certain kind of way. If you don't do it like that, the house is going to fall over, so it's like
there's unorthodox ways of building houses,
that's what I was saying. There are options, but
there's that guy on YouTube who just lives in Africa or something and just digs shit all the time and then like just creates these like
very
insane.
Impressive.
I don't know. There's some unorthodox ways of doing everything, I imagine.
No, it's very true. Well, and creativity comes from the margins. you know, so we all read these fucking. Well, I think we talked about this last time. I was saying how I listened to the guys or the writer from Back to the Future, and he was saying how like a guy my age is reading books written by guys like him, but they were reading books written by guys who were doing stage plays. And so they had to bend the mold off of how you do a stage play and figure out how to do movies. So it would also be not wise of me to just copy one for one what they wrote and told me to do. Like, I need to be that next step of.
Well, you could start by
evolving.
copying it, right? And then you just start slowly changing it. I think that's what
That's how I
everyone
like
does.
to do it, yeah.
So
Yeah, normally when you figure out, well, it's like, so I play Magic the Gathering, right? Like,
Right.
if people want to get into competitive Magic, one of the best ways to do is to.
I
net
wish
deck.
I wish it wasn't competitive Magic the Gathering. I wish it was competitive
know.
Magic. Now
I know.
that I would get into.
Like yesterday or the day before, David Blaine was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and it was really interesting listening to him just talk for 2 hours, because I've probably heard him say 8 words like ever, because he's just always like.
He's
"Hey,
never,
let's do a magic
he's
trick."
never struck me as the most chatty guy as far
He's
as
super chatty. It was
publicly.
shocking.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he was super chatty. I was very surprised. But yeah, it was just interesting because he was talking about how like the Magic game is bigger than people think it is, and so it's funny you're bringing up like competitive Magic. Like
Yeah.
he's the kind of guy who would be into it being that popular because he really thinks it's very valuable and very cool. You know what his next big stunt's going to be?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Kind of crazy. He is going to have a big old bundle of balloons, and he's going to walk up and grab the balloons and then have them like just take him into the sky. Now, up in those balloons, floating on balloons, I presume, is one of them is a parachute. So what he has to do is he has to go and grab these balloons, take them up into the sky, so he like disappears up into the sky, pulls down one of those balloons that has the backpack, and then put it on, and then jump or just let go, and then try to like what do you call it? Parachute down. That sounds.
David
That
Blaine
sounds
at
like
some
he may
point
die.
he transitioned from magic to stunts.
No, what's fascinating?
He's a
it's
stunt guy
it's been the
now.
whole time. That's what's fascinating. It's actually so he explained that. He said what happened was when he was a kid, he got into magic. But if you go to any magic store as a kid in the '80s or whatever, and you start pulling books, you're going to find half of the books are going to be filled with stuff from Houdini. So it basically put him on this dual process right at the same time. So he was always basically the entire time was super into the crazy human stunt feats or whatever. And then he was also into like card tricks, you know, this, that, and the other thing, kind of stuff like that, you know, the magic stuff. So I do think that's very interesting that he has like, he's almost he's like at the forefront of 2 separate entertainment types, you know?
Yeah.
One of them I just wish he didn't do because I just think that almost every one of them like he could die in, and I just don't think it's worth it.
And a
for
lot of
people
them
to
are
go, like, "That's kinda
just
cool."
like weird endurance tests and stuff.
Yeah,
like I'm
almost
gonna
all of them,
be
yeah.
in ice for 6 months or whatever.
I think the criticism is that they're not compatible. I think
Yeah,
at
they're
its
weird.
and this is the Penn and Teller criticism of David Blaine. I'm not trying to ventriloquize Penn and Teller because I think they put it in their own ways. But I think the criticism is that in Magic,
Allow me to ventriloquize Teller.
all right,
Good job.
yes, well done,
You're
did
killing
it.
it, bro. You're killing it.
No, so I think the criticism is that when you're doing magic on stage, especially in front of people, you have an audience in front of you. You have a responsibility, essentially, to make sure that the audience isn't participating in anything that is immoral, in their words. Which is to say that they, for example, they've done tricks where they get shot by bullets, or like they catch a bullet in their teeth, like classic tricks like that. And it's like, but or like where you know Penn like puts a nail gun, like shoots Teller with a nail gun. It's like supposed to be a memorization exercise where he's memorized the sequence of where the nails are and where there isn't a nail, and he's shooting them at his friend. And it's like, and what they say is that we try to make it a point to the audience, even as part of the act, to say that actually this is an act and it's not really I'm not really endangering anyone, because they believe that if you're actually doing something that is, you know, poses a danger, then the audience is now complicit in something immoral. And so for David Blaine to be a magician and also to do things that ostensibly are dangerous,
legitimately very, very dangerous,
then that would be a criticism because it contradicts with the kind of magic philosophy of Penn and Teller. Now, there's that aspect of it. There's also the aspect of how much, I think that's what makes David Blaine interesting, is that how much of what he's doing is actually dangerous and how much of it is just him making you believe that it is.
Sure.
I think
and I'm sure a lot of it is
he has to
making us
sprinkle in.
believe.
He has to sprinkle in a couple of, you know, true peril ones for you to be able to even ask that question. Because if everything he did was, you know, all illusion and not really dangerous, then you wouldn't have to ask that question. So you'd only ask that question. So I think
He
that's
brought
really
up that
interesting.
it's a sore point that every time he's done some of these endurance things, people always think he's faking them, and he was like frustrated by.
Oh
it.
yeah,
Like,
no, I'm
I'm
sure.
really doing
right. It's like, well, then what's the fucking point of me really doing this? You know, like he was supposed to fake one. He was supposed to do Buried Underground, and they were gonna have like a hatch for him to get out of or whatever, and he would
Yeah.
come back in 6 months, and they would let him out. And then he was like, no, that's stupid. I'll just actually do it, and then we'll make a glass case where people can like see me the whole time or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the big ones to me were like he didn't eat for like 60 days or something ridiculous like that.
That's a long
And-
time. I don't know
Is
if
it-
you have ever not eaten for 60 days, but
Only a couple of times. I try not to do it too often.
I don't think that's fun.
Well, what happened is he said he had like kidney
Happy
failure,
Ramadan.
and to this day he has problems. Like to this day he has health problems because it hurt his body so bad. He's kind
No,
of like,
yeah, that would fuck up your kidneys.
It's not. I mean, I don't want to make weird false equivalencies to him and Jews from the Holocaust, but like he had those same kinds of.
But David
repeating
Blaine had it
problems.
worse. We can agree.
That's
that-
basically what I'm getting at. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but it's
okay.
No, but seriously, it's. I don't recommend.
Good luck
it.
putting this on YouTube.
Yeah, no,
It's
yeah.
fine. Grow
Luckily,
up.
luckily the algorithm doesn't understand context.
Yeah.
And as long as Come
That's
Town
not
has
a lucky
podcast
thing.
on
That's an
YouTube-
unlucky thing, and based on what's just been said.
I don't know. I think it's
It's just
It's-
this huge Kafkaesque edifice. We don't really know how.
You
it
said
works.
it. Da,
Eventually he's just gonna, like, he's gonna-
da, da, da.
he's gonna forget one podcast, and at the very end, he's gonna be like, "Oh, Kafkaesque."
Kafkaesque.
By the way, I have to go to this Kafkaesque party. I'll see you guys later.
Oh, I want to come to your Kafkaesque party.
Dude,
do
we
it.
should throw a Kafkaesque party.
It'll be
Hey,
in
did you guys-
Prague.
I'm coming dressed as a cockroach.
Did you guys watch any of that film festival that was online?
Yeah, I saw a couple with
Yeah.
Adam.
Anything exciting?
Yeah. I watched Feels Good Man, which is the Pepe the
Okay.
Frog. Pepe the Frog. I don't know how to say it. Pepe.
Yeah,
Pepe the
yeah.
Frog documentary, and it was phenomenal. It was like it was the best movie either of us had seen this year.
Interesting.
And
Out of
I think
all
Adam
two
gave
you've
it.
seen this year.
Yeah.
Is it because you're both meme lords, though? Would the average person be into it?
No, it was actually like genuinely just a really well done movie with a great story, and
It's
I
also
didn't think,
it's a prolific meme.
know,
too.
knowing what I knew about the limited things I knew about Pepe before going into it, I wasn't looking
Right.
forward to it, but I was pleasantly surprised at the way it tackled and explained everything, and it was very methodical. It had a story, it had interesting characters. Obviously, it's all documentary, so it's real, and I
Yeah.
definitely would highly recommend it to anyone.
No, dope. I'll totally check it out.
Nice.
And then we saw the new Neil Marshall film, which I think he's going to make a review on, but I'm not going to, so I don't know how much I should spoil. Neil, obviously, he did this guy who did The Descent. I think it was called, what was the Neil Marshall film called? Something
The Descent 3.
fuck, I even forget what it's something about witches. It's like, it's set in you can tell how much this movie had an impact on me. It's set in like the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages when there's like the plague. And the premise is this kind of like main character is this woman who people think is a witch, and she
Is it
has
The
to, like-
Reckoning?
The Reckoning, that's it. And it was just a disaster. It was.
Oh,
it was
really?
really bad.
Damn.
Well, I
Yeah.
really didn't like it. I don't think Adam liked it much either, although probably he had some things he appreciated about it more than I did. But it was a total disaster. Like it's set in the Middle Ages, and like the main
Yeah.
character, the main character has immaculate eyebrows and perfect teeth, and like
Perfect.
Oh, that
she's
always drives
gorgeous.
me
Everyone had, look,
crazy.
man, not a lot of people know. A lot of people had great teeth in the
Dude,
1300s.
they're-
I love
they were
I love
great.
seeing like perfectly clean peasants, and
Yeah, no, they're
Middle
beautiful.
Ages. I hate
And she
that
had
shit.
this like
showered
she had this like
peasants.
received pronunciation, and everyone else around her had these like more country accents, and she's supposed to be from the country, so it's like really anyway.
Got
There's
this,
a whole
like,
bunch of shit about.
perfect London accent.
And it was like it was trying to be martyrs, but wasn't anywhere
Okay.
near like what that was to
That's
some
always-
extent.
that's tough.
So it was pretty bad. And then there was one other movie which
Well, he
I
did
didn't.
Hellboy before, so ugh.
Oh yeah, there was one other movie which I didn't watch with Adam and Sikab, but Adam had me skip through it with me because he wanted to show it to me, and it was this movie which the title I don't know, but it's the premise is it's this one take samurai fight film where it's like you're a samurai and the whole thing is just one take and it's just a huge long fight. It's like 90 minutes or some shit.
Wow.
Interesting.
And it's like
yeah, it's
yeah,
called
so like
Crazy Samurai Musashi.
that's it, yeah, and like that, and it's like the premise was obviously very it's like oh, this-
400 versus 1 in a single take is their tagline.
yeah, that's so it's like wow, that sounds, I want to watch that. That sounds like
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it
that sounds
interesting.
really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And then we did, well, they did, and then he showed it to me after because he skipped through it just to show me what they did, which was unbelievably like shit.
man.
Is
Oh,
they
no.
they started the film with like a proper, like they're filming on digital and everything, and like it's really well lit and everything's good, and there's no fight scenes yet. It's just like they're setting up the whole story,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
it cuts to the fight scene, and I shit you not, it's a people in the woods. One of them's wearing a GoPro, so he's filming everything. So it's a GoPro footage, and
Right.
for like an hour and a half, just people LARPing with swords and shit.
No.
I'm not even kidding.
Oh,
And like there's
no.
CG blood, and then it moves from
no.
location to location, and they have like a couple of set pieces where it's like, oh, here's like a boss or whatever, like a slightly
okay.
more difficult
Yeah.
one.
Right.
And the choreography
Yeah,
was just
I'm looking at stills.
just awful.
Oh,
But it was,
rough.
and I was like, yeah, I could have stopped watching it after 10 minutes, but I just had to watch the whole thing because it was like, it was too fascinating not to. But yeah, it was,
Well, I like those challenges, right? Like that's part of why I like film.
Oh, yeah. No, totally.
24-hour, 48-hour film festivals. It's interesting to be given a project and be like, hey, make this work.
Yeah.
So I think I'm very titillated by the concept, but I immediately, like, as soon as you said what it was, I'm like, I can't imagine how that could be interesting for 77 minutes. But
Turns out
I couldn't believe it was that long. Like I was like, no,
this
like
is a feature-length movie.
like he because the GoPro footage started and then like 10 minutes in and he's like so he's skipped to 10 minutes in and he skipped to 20 minutes after that and he skipped to 40 minutes after that and it's
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
just
still
the same
going.
thing.
It's like how the fuck?
How is this happening?
And like they're rotating extras, and every time an extra like the person dies, like they fall or stumble off screen or crawl off screen
And then
so
they're
they can
gone.
like
Yeah.
recycle themselves again, and there's no permanent blood on the clothes or the sword because it's all CG.
Perfect.
It was
rough, man. That's
something
too bad.
else. It was something else.
It
And I
was
watched
nice
some shorts
on paper.
yesterday. And I think he's watching stuff right now. Actually,
I'll be
Okay.
watching one with him on Monday, I think.
Okay.
You Cannot Kill David Arquette, which I'm pretty psyched for.
All right.
Word.
Yeah.
Well, it's geo-blocked to you guys, I think. So
Which one?
the festival.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm not sure. I think, well, there's a way for us to watch it, so we're watching
Yeah.
it. So I don't know.
No, I'm saying it's geo-blocked to you. I mean, like for you guys. Like
Ah,
it's
yes.
a Canada
Oh, only.
thing, so,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh,
From
yeah.
what I'm
Gotcha,
hearing.
gotcha.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Otherwise, I mean, yeah, if I really wanted to like push it, I guess I could get like a VPN or something like that. But yeah, You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I like David Arquette. He seems
Yeah.
very likable.
It's the doc is really cool because it's about him in wrestling.
Yeah, it follows
Which-
David Arquette attempting to return to wrestling after his acting career stalls.
Yeah, because like basically what
That just
what it
sounds
because like
real.
because he was like a known actor. He was in Scream and all
Yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah.
and then he was in a shitty wrestling movie, Ready to Rumble, which was
I
like
saw that.
which was like sponsored by WCW, one of the two big promotions at the time. And WCW, who were to be dead within a year through terrible mismanagement, decided to make David Arquette their world champion, which even at the height of terrible WCW,
Yeah.
was a decision that like appalled all the fans because like a lot of dumb shit happens in wrestling and especially in WCW 2000. In fact, I have a whole podcast about it.
Yeah.
But the world title usually is always on someone who's decent, whether
Like
they're a
yeah.
good wrestler
Like
or
a wrestler.
yeah, certainly a trained professional wrestler would be
Right,
kind
right,
of the
right.
minimum requirement. So, and then everyone hated that, and then everyone in wrestling hated David Arquette forever, and that was the only wrestling thing he did. And then he just went back to like B movies for the rest of the 2000s. And then in 2018, he like decided to make this comeback to wrestling in his mid 40s, if not. Yeah, at least mid 40s, and did all these like crazy like death matches and stuff with like fluorescent light tubes and shit, and got his neck sliced open.
Jesus.
Tell
And
me why does
it's crazy.
Why does what's that guy? I'm sorry, I just interrupted you for nothing. Is it CM Punk? What's his name?
CM Punk, yeah.
Okay, CM Punk. Why does he get so much hate?
I think he's an unpleasant guy. I think he's hard to work with. He's an amazing interview promo. He's a very good wrestler. He was a big, he was the world champion for 2 years, and then he got sick of it, quit, and very unsuccessfully went into MMA.
Yeah,
and
I see. That's how I kind of caught up with him a little bit. Except for he was in a music video at one point. But
the hate is partly just his attitude. People being resentful that he left at a time where he could have been one of the top guys in the company for another 5 years, and just being resentful I think it's a lot of being resentful that they didn't get to see him do more stuff. I think that's what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like every time he gets brought up, there's like, it's not just like, yeah, he's not all that great at, MMA or whatever. It's always like, oh, this piece of shit. Why did they even give him a chance? Like, what the fuck? And I'm like, what? I don't know the guy. I don't know what the deal
Yeah,
is. Like,
I think that's the main thing. Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna learn some stuff about wrestling from you over time. We're gonna.
I got you.
Figured
I
out.
think we all will.
Well, what's really sad is the thing that got me like the most, where I started going like, that's okay, that's kind of interesting. The guy who sold it to me was Max Landis, who is now.
Oh yeah, he loves wrestling. Max Landis has bought me pizza at a wrestling show before.
I'm gonna be honest with you. That's kind of
that's a
cool
fact.
for a guy.
Yeah.
For a guy who seems to be very, very rightfully heavily canceled.
Yep, I have one in-person experience with Max Landis, and it is positive.
Right. Well, like Red Letter Media was trashing him, so he went on their show, and then like he seemed a delight on that show. And then he made this thing called Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, and
Which is great.
It's really good.
Great.
It's
yes.
really good. Like it literally got me. Like it made me feel like I understood wrestling for the first time.
That is one of the first things I would ever show to someone who's not a wrestling fan, who's interested in like what's wrestling about. Like that's what I would show. That's one of the first things I would show them.
I was shocked. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. I was like, oh, now I get it. Like my whole, because it's this thing where I've always been like near it. But I was never a fan.
Right.
By a lot of wrestling video games and things like that. But it was always like, I don't understand what the appeal is, because it's not just fake. It's so over the top, unbelievably obviously fake. So what is the actual appeal? And then when he sold it, it was like, oh my God, I get that now. Like that makes a lot of sense. That actually could be very entertaining.
Yeah. He does a really good job, like articulating what the interesting thing about wrestling is. And sort of the misconceptions about it otherwise. Because just the people saying, the worst is it's fake, right, people? Well, fucking course. Movies are fake. Like, that's not the point.
And it's also like, because he's saying, he's like, yeah, it's fake. But also, I mean, like, it's so fake that, like, we have a storyline where this guy is a fucking wizard who has, like, a harem of fucking witches that, like, give him his power.
Yeah, the Undertaker is literally magic.
So he's like, come on. Like, so it's really like a reflection of how ignorant you are when you're saying, know it's fake, right? It's like, dude, let me show you 10 minutes. And it's obvious that it's fake. Like, these people aren't all, believing this. I mean, but you can also tell it just through normal. Like, if you go look at, these guys are in, like, oh, hey, we just caught so-and-so behind the ring, and what do you have to say? And he has, like, this perfectly prepared statement, because they're not all
they're very
actors.
eloquent.
Yeah, they're not all very strong actors, so that kind of stuff should be enough to let you know. But yeah, I don't, it's, it's just, it's sad the guy turned out to be kind of a scumbag, but, it's actually really funny, because I know this porn star who moved back here, which kind of random, but she got to meet him, and she had a Me Too story about the guy. So I was like,
really,
man, like, God, dude,
damn.
So it's rough, it. I don't know. It's funny. I've been talking a lot about this with some of my friends with like cancel culture, and I was saying like part of what's difficult about it is if you're gonna be a super diehard, like as soon as I find out that the person's douchey, I'm gonna not buy your albums anymore. I'm gonna this, that, and the other thing, and I'm going to now attribute that to the art and the value of the art that you created in the past. Say people stop listening to Michael Jackson, right? Part of what you're doing then is you're playing this weird moral luck game where you're saying everyone I like is whoever I just don't know about yet.
Yes.
And I could just find out tomorrow that the person's a total scumbag, so for a person who's like hyper cynical like me, I kind of just take the bent that everyone's pretty much probably a scumbag, and maybe I'll get surprised.
Yeah, just consume all art with the knowledge that every single person making it is a pedophile. And then it's fine.
Because then you can consume no art if you want to, and that's up to you. That's fine. But I just don't think
just enjoy the art or don't. Forget about who's making it.
I feel like I'm kind of playing a trick on myself if I try to do this thing where it's like, no, everyone I like is a cool guy, and it's just those guys who are bad guys. Yeah. Everyone I like, they're all great morally.
And I hope I don't read anything about it tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I think there are a lot of genuinely good people who create art. I think it's too cynical. I hesitate to say to assume that everyone is a pedophile, although I'm sure that some QAnon people would disagree with it. But
so,
I mean, I think
some Congress people now.
And some congressmen, yes.
No, a couple of them.
I think Michael Jackson's different though, right? Because he's dead, right? I think like yes, he has an estate now. People I think the longer someone's been dead, the more forgiving you can be of their art. And like how you consume it, like that's my take at least. I know like everyone has their own take, and I think I think there are some people who actually have no problem whatsoever, like you just articulated, where it's fine. They can just consume art completely independent of the artist, and I think that's
Well,
totally
especially
fine. I think that's
anything
totally
from
fine.
like the 1600s, we don't know a lot about these people too. So it's like,
Yeah,
so it
for
could have
sure.
been eating children or something, and we're all
Yeah.
like, yeah, I love this
Yeah,
guy.
for sure. And I think if people have no problem consuming art while ignoring the artist, I think is perfectly fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there are a lot of people who do have issues with that, and I think to those people need. I think to some extent, I'd like to think I'm one of them. I think we need some sort of framework to be able to operate under. Like, it feels bad, for example, to give J.K. Rowling money.
So that's where I was going to agree with you.
When when she has when she has a platform that she's using to essentially just spread hate.
Yeah, I was going to agree with you.
Really
That, like,
way.
I wouldn't buy. Well, so for instance, I'm basically in a soft boycott. Okay, this is going to get me in trouble for sure. But like, I'm not trying to cancel party, but I'm personally boycotting John Boyega over some stuff that he said that I thought was very racist. And so,
I haven't seen his racist stuff, but I do love him shitting on like Star Wars and the Star Wars culture.
I love
He's
it.
Like,
yeah,
fuck
yeah.
it was a job. Like, what? Leave me alone.
No, totally. Well, anywhere he was like, they were like, hey, are you going to be on some kind of show? He's like, wait, you're talking about Disney Plus? You mean Disney Plus and me? I was like, I like that. I respect that. But no, he was, it doesn't matter. But he said some stuff that was very, anti-white racist. And we're in a climate right now in America where that's like A-okay, and I'm not into it.
Yeah,
so, point being is that I can understand the like you said, with the living artist with like new projects. It's like, Chris Brown puts out a new album. If I pay for that, I'm basically directly giving Chris Brown money. So that's a different situation we could talk about. But
yeah.
So I mean I can understand that part. But like if I'm in a diner and they're playing like a Chris Brown song and I start like dancing around to it, it's like that is not me saying, man, I love Chris Brown so much. Like, dude, I love beating women. It's like this song is funky, man. Like,
well, yeah, but no one's saying that that's what you're doing, right? I think
I brought that up literally for a reason. I was in it's a place called Quixote's. If you ever come to Colorado Springs, you should check it out. Delicious Mexican food. And a Michael Jackson, it was like Bad was playing, and I was dancing around to Bad, and the girl I was with was like, hey, we don't dance to Michael Jackson. And I was like, see, that's the culture I'm not into. I think.
I'll grant you. There's like, I'm sure there's right now there's a very polarized culture out there, and like there's so many sticks we could poke at it with. But I think reasonable people can agree about what can and can't be enjoyed with or without conscience. For example, like because there's some stuff where it's that the art is just so genuinely enjoyable that there's some forgiveness, some leeway I'll give. Like I'm not going to I'm going to try my best not to give Louis C.K. more money, but I love his content. Like I genuinely think a lot of it's funny. Some of it in hindsight hasn't aged well in context, which is funny in a cosmic way. It's kind of funny in a kind of in a cosmic irony type of way, rather than in a literally that's the way it was intended to be. It's like it's funny in that like he's making a joke about masturbating in front of women. That's kind of.
But the
funny.
other hard thing with Louis C.K. though is like if I also believe that he was still that same guy doing all that exact same stuff, that would be a very different scenario for me too than it is with the Chris Brown, who I haven't seen any kind of actual.
Yeah, there's gradations, right? There's some gradations of like the severity of what you did. Do you feel bad about it? Have you expressed feel? How have you addressed it? I think there's so much. I think
Kevin
it's
Hart's
so
a good
much
example,
richer and deeper than we try to give it credit. I think it's often painted in this very black and white, like either you're canceled and you're not allowed, or you're an angel and you're fine. I don't think it's that way at all. I think like I think like with J.K. she was given so many chances to back up, and she kept doubling
and she
down.
just keeps.
And so I think that's why she's kind of at this point.
You got to
Right,
begrudgingly
canceled.
respect that.
Well, and whatever she did that pissed people off in whatever time, she's still actively doing today.
She's still doing it. Yeah.
CK isn't still jerking.
I don't know
off
if he's
in
still
front of people,
we
so
don't know
that's
if he's still
kinda what
masturbating in
I'm-
front of women. He
sure.
probably isn't.
If he is, he's doing it much more quietly and good for him.
Certainly.
And for whatever reason, these new girls are not talking about it, but the old ones did. So fair enough. You're right. You never know 100%. But as far as like my working knowledge is, I'm in a very different headspace with someone who's like, hey, look. I have made some serious, mistakes at whatever given point. I've grown since then. You guys have just now found out about it. Well, like Justin Trudeau, he's not walking around in blackface all the time.
That one's
Not all the time,
also,
but a bit
that
of the
one's
time.
also kind of see like that's everything needs context, right? Because that one he's a politician, right? And that's different from being like an artist.
Fair.
Right? There's there's so much more going on there with
Totally
that,
fair.
in my opinion.
But that's
And
a little bit of a situation.
And
though, where
I
the
think
difference
it's a good topic for discussion too. But I definitely think like that one's more like. It's slimy, right? Because it's like...
Okay, but let's get out at Justin Trudeau. I mean,
Yeah,
Harvey from, what's it called? Epic Mealtime. Several
don't
actors
know
and
anything
actresses.
about that.
It doesn't matter. There's other entertainers who have also been like, they were in blackface. First off, I don't believe I don't like calling these things blackface. To me, blackface is a very specific thing that we did when we didn't want to hire black people, and we would get white people and dress them up like black people in a very like tar baby kind of generic, you know, Jim Crow kind of looks situation to keep work from black people, to disparage black people. Someone who's like, I'm white and my favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan, so I dressed up like Michael Jordan for Halloween. You're a racist. Like, that is ridiculous to me. I think that is completely ridiculous.
I don't know. Again, like I don't know about John Boyega either. I haven't heard the stuff that you said, so I can't really comment on it. With the blackface thing, I think from a social perspective, the argument that I've heard to some extent is that it's evocative of kind of these earlier, you know, minstrel shows and you know the stuff that the exploitation that was used, and to some extent still is being used to, you know, for gain, for the person's gain. You know, who is blacking up in a sense, and that depends on the context too. I think there's some contexts which are more forgivable than others.
I would never take it any further than, hey man, you should probably not do that. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people.
Look bad.
Yeah, I would like to think that most people feel that way about it right now.
Yeah, well, we're arguing about the difference between basically
you
Twitter
should probably
and the
check
real
Twitter
world.
then.
And but I don't consider the Twitter sphere to be reflective of that.
For sure.
The problem is though is at these cancellation parties, that's where it's happening, and when people are losing their jobs and losing their sponsors, that's where it's happening. So that's the difficulty. If it was just
when jobs are actually being lost and things like that, then like it's really happening. Yeah.
Who?
He said when jobs are being lost.
When jobs are actually being lost, I said. Yeah.
Again, depends on the context. Depends which jobs. Like again, like I really do think it makes a difference. Like I think it makes a differse when there's someone who's making like $50 million.
Here's an interesting one. Jenny Slate, white comedian actress, is a voice on Big Mouth, the cartoon.
Yeah. I remember this. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
She voices a mixed race girl, half black, half white.
Yeah.
She has lost her job.
Yep.
Because
I heard she stepped down.
She lost that job. Is what
I don't know.
I heard that she said that she felt like it was wrong for a white person to pretend to be a mixed race person. That's another one.
Let's say she did lose her job. I don't mind with the premise. Let's say she did lose her job. So she lost that particular role. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what's wrong with that? Like, what? I don't feel bad for Jenny Slate. She's gonna be fine, right? I mean, like, that's the example of context where I don't really care
for that sort of reason.
I don't think though that morality only matters if they're going to be fine or not, because I could go rob a person right now.
I agree with you. No, I agree with you. I'm not trying to imply that. I'm not trying to imply that.
Okay. So that's what it sounded like. So I don't want to.
No, I'm not trying to imply that, but I think the context does matter to some extent, because
I do think context matters
because Jenny Slate is, and this is gonna probably piss a lot of people off, but Jenny Slate is a privileged woman. Right,
sure.
And like all of these people that we're talking about, Justin Trudeau or whatever, these are privileged people. These are people who are not living from paycheck to paycheck.
That necessitates it though, because no one cares about us.
And to kind of bounce back on, against, I suppose, the Jordan Peterson argument, to get ahead of it, because his big thing is that we've created this oppressor versus oppressed culture, which is kind of a weaselly way of putting what we're actually talking about, which is that there are some people who have. Well, I disagree, because I think that's a Weasley way of putting it. Because the culture isn't necessarily oppressor versus oppressed necessarily. I think there's truthfully some people who have more power than other people, and that's just the reality. There's some people with
certainly
some power, and some people who
but
don't.
Both can be true at the same time, though. Like, people can be expounding on something that is maybe real, but then they're trying to make because that's a very common strawman argument.
Yeah,
I think.
I'm not going to say that
someone who's wrong will want to say, "Well, you're white, so you can't talk." Or you're rich, so you can't talk.
Again, that's a simplification, right? Like, I think like that's there's a lovely. I think there's a great can of worms we can open there. I know we're kind of running on our time here.
Yeah,
but there's a great can of worms.
About 1 minute, by the way.
That's fine. There's a great can of worms I'd love to open there, because I think that's also a misrepresentation of what the actual argument of, who really gets to say what, like, how does power and privilege have absolutely zero effect and zero bearing on
it's a
who
misrepresentation
can be
of the argument, but people do say it.
People do say it for sure. Yeah. But like,
and
what do
find out what we think about that in 2 weeks' time.
We'll talk about. We'll talk more about.
No, I think we should. I think that'd be great. I would love to talk about it. I'm actually very passionate about this topic.
Same.
And I have a lot of opinions, and I've actually talking about privilege. I feel very privileged to be a person of color, to be able to make some of these arguments where if I was white, I would feel very uncomfortable saying that, like, it's okay for a white person to be in blackface, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I guess
No,
we'll
I'm glad
see.
you're here to say it for me. So
see that right? Yeah. If you ever want to say the N word, you can just pause and I'll say it, and then get back to what you're doing.
you guys are
I'll
acting
be
like a
here.
bunch of.
I forgot algorithm. All right. I love you guys. I'm not BSing. I'm going to keep this section here and remember it, and we'll I totally wanna get into it
we'll
next
pick up on
time.
it. We'll pick up
Let's
on
do
it
it.
for
Awesome.
sure.
All right. Well, I love you guys
All
a long time, and thanks for listening, everyone. Y'all have a good one.
Cheers.
All right. Later.
Bye.
Cheers.
Yeah,
wonder-
horse
that's
horse tornado for like merry-go-round would be close enough.
I
You don't
am
really
a
need-
fan of horse tornado.
You don't really need like more literal. It's like people get what you mean if you
We
just
missed out on a naming convention for our podcast.